Spilt Studios. The company I founded about 8 years ago. There are 3 of us full-time employees and the rest of us are sort of contractors. And I'm going to give you sort of a chronological chat through, how on earth we ended up making an MMO sort of by accident and what that means and the trials and tribulations therein. The first thing you do is you panic, right? That's obvious, but then you have to get a little bit more serious. This is also the tone of the talk, so this is the problem. So first things first, how on earth do you find yourself just making an MMO? Surely you're trying to make one, you start wanting to make one. Well, if we rewind back to winter of 2015, we were sort of between projects, as you find yourself as an indie occasionally, and we heard about the UK Games Fund, and they had a small pot of money that they would give out to successful pitchers to make, specifically to make a game pitchable or an idea pitchable. So we came up with a pitch called Waterways, and we spent 12 weeks and sort of 5 or 6 people over those 12 weeks making this paper idea into a real game. This was kind of like the key art image of the game. It's a first-person action game, sort of set in a weird twist on a Victorian canal kind of fantasy land. You're being chased through it, and this is just a screenshot of where we managed to get kind of in terms of vision fidelity towards the concept art. And we were really pleased with what we did, so we thought, let's tell everyone, right? Let's yell to the skies. Basically, anyone who would take a meeting, we would take it and show them. And it wasn't really, we took it to GDC and tried to sign it, but we also would take it to people who we just thought maybe they might be impressed, and you just never know where things might lead. So, sort of one of the key things that one of the rules we abide by, I suppose, is that someone will find what you're doing interesting, and that can range from going and booking a meeting at a company, showing what you're doing, to just tweeting about some funny thing that happened in Unity today, and that's like a key part of our sort of marketing and PR effort and the sort of studio culture, I suppose. And I think that the more people do this, the better in general. And also, it's easy to get kind of down on games and this, that, and the other, it's hard, whatever. I don't really care. Making something that's playable is amazing. That's an achievement that everyone should be proud of, everyone should shout about that more. The fact that it might be fun is even more incredible, and we should all just be a bit more excited about it. So that's kind of like our attitude towards things, and that led us to pitching around. We went to Improbable as one of the sort of the pitches where we were we just want to show cool people our cool stuff, and hopefully something might happen eventually. So we ended up in a room with a whiteboard and a marker pen and the CEO of Improbable, that's Herman, I don't know if you know him, and us two, so that's Andrew, our technical director, that's me when I used to smoke cigars. And we basically pitched 3 ideas. So Spatial OS is the product that the Improbable will make, and it's essentially a sort of cloud-based backend for massive simulation, right? So obviously for games that's pretty handy and cool, and we'll get a bit onto that later. But one idea that we pitched was Snake mixed with Star Fox and Minecraft, if you can imagine that for a second. The idea was you were a dragon flying through the sky, and behind you would sort of lay, for want of a better word, terrain, blocky terrain, and that would be sort of a weird way of playing around with one of the things that Spatial does, which is offer kind of a scale and a persistence of objects at that scale. So how can we have everything the player does have an effect on the world, meaningful? And so that was one idea. Idea 2 was, Bomberman's cool, isn't it? Wouldn't it be cool if the Saturn one with 10 players was even bigger? That'd be great. Because another thing that Spatial does is offer the ability to deploy quite massive scale simulations in terms of players. So we're talking sort of up to thousands. Lazarus, as it stands, is we have 500 players concurrently per server, and that's it's a pretty big number, and it's still a bit weird to me. But we thought Bomberman, but hundreds or thousands of players of Bomberman. And then the third game was basically Asteroids the MMO, and that's what Lazarus was born out of. This really struck a chord with what they were trying to do at the time, and then really through chance and timing. So we had an impressive demo that proved that as a small team we could put something out in a short time, and that combined with this idea and the fact that they were looking for a product to essentially demonstrate why Spatial OS is great for games meant that they were well, why don't we just pay you to make a cool game and just do this for a bit, a few months of this, that would be cool. So that was nice, and it just came as a direct result of us shouting like Pingu. So Lazarus, that's what it turned into. So where did we begin? with Unity or whatever. Unity's what we work in, engine of choice, that's fine. It happened to be that Spatial OS only ran in Unity at that point, so that was convenient for us. And assets off the asset store. This is one that we did use very early on, just to kind of get beyond that little moment of just everything looking actually horrible. We spent maybe 3 weeks just slamming stuff in and seeing what we could do. This is like the first multiplayer iteration of, or version of Lazarus. You 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players, all running on one machine in Unity with some assets that we sort of jammed together. That kind of leads us to one of the other things that drives us as a studio and sort of has really helped with Lazarus and how to avoid panic is making sure you make every decision as safe a one as you can. Right? So not building anything from scratch for us was a very safe decision. That's why we chose Unity. We wouldn't be making an MMO if we didn't have Spatial OS as a back end. Right? That made that a safe decision. Because things can go wrong. You don't have to know. It's not. Skipping that. We did about 3 months, 4 or 5 months maybe. We got to like a live public alpha, and then we started taking it around shows. So illustration of things that can go wrong. So Paris Games Week, brilliant. I met Michel Ansel, who did Rayman back in the day, a bit of a hero of mine. I had to run the game off of my laptop through my 4G hotspot because the Wi-Fi at the conference just did not deal with whatever we were doing. So that was unexpected. GDC 2017, we were on a big stand and this just doesn't connect. And it's like, well, I guess that's fine, but you can't really avoid it when it happens. Norwich Gaming Festival, I don't know if anyone's been to that one, but it's really cool, you should. I couldn't find a picture for opening ports, so just christening a ship had to do. But basically they spent an hour and a half on the first day just opening every port they had to try and get our game to work. And this was all, unexpected, but it was certainly, I don't know, we would be silly to sort of like obsess over it. These things happen, that's why we're being the first game using their tech, right? It's all part of the process. Spatial OS, made by Improbable. Did I just turn a bit really down? That's weird. And you might have heard of it because Boss are making Worlds Adrift using the same tech, and there's a bunch of games now that have been announced that are in production. It's kind of just the whole thing's a bit of a risky business, isn't it? Just like I said, going back to making everything as safe as you can, it's really, really important because just the whole making games is tough anyway. So the people that are making the game, that's me again, that's Ropes, and that's our 3D artist of choice, Stephen. We're making things safe from a design point of view. This is the first decision we made. People need to be happy to just jump in, right? You have to see a screenshot and go, cool, I get it, I want to jump on this game. We're not making a World of Warcraft competitor or something like that. It had to be action-packed. It has to be player versus environment. It has to be arcadey, and that's because the last game, the kind of games we like making, are all of those things. They're sort of arcadey, kind of throwbacks, retro, just fun, bright colours, and that's Tango Fiesta, which was our last game on Steam. And the thing, the sort of risky bit, the ambition, Spatial OS, you've got persistence and you've got scale. So the persistence of player actions, objects, and the world itself when you're playing, when you're not playing, these things are still running in the cloud, it's still like a world that exists. And then the scale of it, not giant cats necessarily, good. It's just the amount of players that we can throw at a game mode. And contrary to the Bomberman pitch, more players does not necessarily mean more fun, right? There is a balance to be made, and because we're some of the first devs in the world to be challenging 500 plus in one world, we don't actually know what those problems are going to be. We just know we're going to have to solve a whole bunch to do with persistence and scale. So we like third-party software. PlayFab is something that we've been using for probably 8 months now. It's an amazing tool. We use it for inventory and loot crates, drop tables, that kind of stuff. So the game itself is free to play. I will say it now, people might walk out, it's got loot crates in it, the whole thing's about loot crates, but we'll get onto that later. We just really hate reinventing the wheel, there's not a picture for that. time, it's too risky, we might get it wrong, other people have done it right. Like just use other people's tools. Like don't try to do everything yourself. Also, be nice even if it's difficult. This is kind of like a bit like be nice, that's like lame advice, isn't it? That doesn't make any sense. Like how can you apply that to stuff? So yeah, we kind of realised after 3 people for about 6 months, oh, it's still an MMO, even if we're trying to like minimise all the risk and make smart decisions, we've still like got a lot of content to make for a lot of very hungry players, ideally. And there's only 3 of us. So yeah, we had to kind of staff up. This was the original team. And the problem was we needed a lot of talented people at really short notice, but like what is many people, what is talented in this case, and what is short notice? We needed to at least double the team size, which is not a lot from 3, but in terms of like overhead that you're used to dealing with, it's an awful lot. We needed people to have used Unity to ship good games. Like those things are all kind of like, what's the word, not mutually exclusive, right? You can ship a game in Unity, it might be terrible. You might have shipped a game that was good, but not in Unity. You might have shipped a bad game in Unity, whatever. Anyway, and we needed them in like less than 4 weeks. So this is the kind of thing that there's more. This is the kind of thing where basically genuinely, having hopefully been quite nice and sort of prominent and happy about the industry in the past, this is kind of where it paid off, and this is the first time that we've seen sort of real result of that. So Andy Greer, who's an amazing audio designer, Fee and Jake all came on board initially just to sort of help us figure out how we're going to kind of scope up and work harder. And then we started touring. There is like another round of recruitment in a bit. So yeah, we did all kinds of shows. If you see any of those and you haven't been to them, you should definitely go. Insomnia is a particular favourite because the audience is real gamers who actually care. It's not just about like going for pancakes in America at GEC. It's about, especially for us, it's about team building. Oh, I'm missing a photo. That's annoying. There should be a photo here, if you can imagine for a second, of me and the core guys on stage at EGX with a nice big hug. And it seems silly, but it's about like, we all work remotely, you know, there's 2 of us in an office and then everyone else is everywhere else in the country. We've got Liverpool, Manchester, Teesside, all kinds of stuff. And any excuse to get together as a team and like bask in what you've done, however little it is, or just, you know, bemoan that decision that was made or whatever, like that's really, really, really important. That's why offices work quite well, you know, because you're doing that all the time, all day. But we found that events, we like going to them anyway, but this has been a really good time for us to kind of like reinforce the team and figure things out, and I just wanted to kind of hone in on that for a second. So yeah, then we added 4 more people. Bruce is an amazing technical artist. Simon you'll hopefully know from just being ridiculously good at everything he ever touches. He's an incredible programmer. He came on board to do VFX for us. It's like what he hand animated, tons of VFX. And then Luke and Gary, they shipped Sublevel Zero under SIGTRAP. 5 minutes, cool. So that was the team. I mean, from like 2 people, which we've been for like years, to this many. And I was making this talk, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't realise that at some point I was managing that lot. And then I looked back at like my, my momentum, my task rate, and I was like, oh yeah, I really was managing 10 people at one point, because I got hardly anything done. But yeah, like again, and we wouldn't have been able to do this in such short time without obviously, you know, the requirement from Improbable and realising that making this big game, but also having access to these people at such short notice. It was insane. We got Simon just off of a tweet. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. You can't really repeat that, but what you can repeat, my beard's causing trouble, isn't it? What you can repeat is being nice, right? Like, it's genuinely valuable, demonstrable thing. And then even then, Jake took a couple of weeks off. He's entitled to, that's allowed. So we had to find like a couple more people, again, off Twitter, who just to fill in for content targets. We just like the cadence of our work was really, really high. We have been on Steam sort of not quite early access for like 12 months. So you go to the store page, it points you to our website, and then you sign up to the newsletter to get a code, and then you go back to Steam. That's a bad way of getting people, but that was on purpose. That was because we know it's broken. We know it's like this new tech that's unproven. We don't want early access like users, like hundreds of thousands of people coming in, leaving back reviews, etc. So we very purposely made it a little bit fiddly. Like you only get the code if you really, really want one. Basically, it's just too much of a faff. But that's been great for us, and we've benefited from being live for a very, very long time now. Yeah, we're seeing good results with the Discord community right now. And now we're back to this team, basically. That's weird, isn't it? yeah, so we're now back down to this little squad here, and we're bumbling along quite nicely. We're sort of feature complete. Testing an MMO, we never really thought that through. 500 people on a server, you probably want to do that maybe at least once before you launch. And that's quite hard to find 500 people at once. It's quite expensive. And then also, oh yeah, they're going to generate loads of logs and crashes and info, and then you're just going to have all this like data that you have no idea what to do with. And so we had to write tools very quickly, and that's where Roper, our technical director, really shines. He loves it, so he nailed it. Yeah, we really, this advice is daft, but it's so true. We thought everything through, we're being really cautious, and then you don't kind of you miss something. And I mean that could have cost us like months, as it was. It cost us maybe 3 weeks of dev time on the tools to process all the logs and figure out what it was, and then do another test, etc., etc. So yeah, you kind of end up with smug QA testers submitting piles of logs, and you hope that you can just deal with it. Marketing and PR all keeping players interested when the servers don't work. Hey, topic of the sort of subtopic is this new tech. It's unproven. That's what we're doing. We're trying to prove it. So how do you keep people interested for 12 months of live game? And I mean, we basically just went, well, cool skins and stuff. Reddit, we started off first 200 people to respond to this thread get this skin, and no one else will ever get it. We're in early access, or when we come out of early access, we'll give everyone one of these skins, but you guys need to tell us which one's the coolest. That one won. We sponsored the computer game show, the podcast that some of my friends run. We did an EGX skin. We did a live stream event where if we got 40 people, we'd unlock one of them, and if we got 50, we'd unlock another one. For the whole community, we only got the little one. And PC Gamer very recently, so you can, this month's issue, you can go pick it up and get a skin. But yeah, all of that stuff was weird because for like 12 months we were essentially shouting into Reddit and Discord and not really hearing much back and and then something nice like this happens. This guy comes back after a while away. I mean, I think it's something like 8 months or something, and he's just completely blown away by it. And this came out of the blue, completely unpredicted. Just we had done an update. We do sort of like weekly ones, and it's really nice. And this is the kind of thing that I share with the team and really motivates you. It's like a real like you're doing it right. But then sometimes you get this kind of thing where people go, he edited this. He was mean about our name when I looked to take a screenshot, and then he'd actually edited it. But yeah, it's pre-early access, it's live alpha. We state this everywhere, but still you get people trying to review the game, even though there's no you can't do it through Steam because it's not out on early access, so you can't review it. That was like a on-purpose thing we did, but still they're like my review in the forums, and you're just kind of like, oh. I love the passion, genuinely. It's great to have this, but you kind of sort of think, really, just be nicer or wait a little while. And then, of course, timing-wise, we're making the game on the grades, and then that happens. I'm being a bit frivolous about it, but they're just an example of doing something badly rather than the thing they're doing being inherently bad. So I'm sure it'll be fine. There are some stats. There's a funny picture about questions. Are there any questions? Is there time? It's fine if not. There's not time, that's fine. Sorry. I wish I had a sad MGS soldier now, but there you go. Yeah, quick stop to hopefully get something useful in that.